going to be less about the massacres and more about the human experience. And it definitely was. And I think that regardless of the outcome of the trial, this is something we're going to go back to and listen to this kind of untainted opinion before, final judgments are made after this trial. So this particular person, Cassie, was a criminology major, but after this event, she gave it up. She's now a psychology major, and she's transferred out of that campus to she's still going to WSU, but another branch in another area. And BK was one of 2 TAs that were in that class. And it was held in a lecture hall with about 300 students. So this wasn't like an intimate setting. It was quite a large class. And he was appointed a TA in the fall of 2022, and his same pathways, the same things he was doing there, were very similar to what other TAs were doing as well. So when the podcaster asked her, well, what exactly was this class about? And the answer that Cassie gave was, well, the class was about how to get away with murder, which was an interesting answer. And but basically they studied criminal behavior, and that was basically in that specific class. So it was pertaining to criminal behavior and how to get away with murder. And more specifically, they talk a lot about the law. And part of her thinks the BK still could be innocent. So she's not fully convinced yet, but she's also not fully convinced he's innocent either. She said mainstream media has been reaching out to her to make statements about BK, but she's really felt entrapped. She thought that it was them trying to get her to say he was a bad guy, and she just didn't agree to do a podcast until now. And so they start really going into a profile of BK, and it gets really interesting, actually. Before I get into this, I want to hook you. I want you guys to know like how interesting this is. I did take 2 quotes and wrote them down before we got started, because this is kind of a long review. So I want to make sure you know what you're going to hear out of this. So these are 2 quotes you're going to be interested in, direct quotes from the podcast. She said, when she was asked to describe him physically, she said he had a very clean look. He was always shaven. He had his hair done. He was always wearing sweaters and jeans. He always looked nice. He was tall, white, dark hair, very skinny, slim. He had a slim fit. He just always seemed like he was just there. He wasn't interacting with others. He was kind of just there. And I thought that was interesting because if you remember in the new book that Bloom put out, he said that one of the qualities that other people were saying about BK was that when he first got there, he was like overly introductive, and that it wasn't like in a friendly way, it was in an awkward way. And that's just kind of contradictory to what this one student is saying, who was close to him and saw him on a daily basis. She said that people have made him out to be a creep who had nothing going for him. But this is her exact quote. She says, but like he was almost done with his life. He was at his goal. He had so much of a future ahead of him. And said that he didn't, to say that he didn't is straight up lies, is what she said. It's not like he's a weird outsider dude who didn't have anything going for him. She said he was at his goal. He was at a place where they all wanted to be. And she said she couldn't even imagine being where he was. He had a future, and she really wanted to impress that. So I'm reading that to you because that account of BK kind of flies in the face of the anonymous source, in Bloom's book, or one of them at least. So let me continue with my review of the podcast. So Cassie said for the first few weeks he was very silent, and Cassie said he was silent, but he was noticeable, and she often watched him. And she really emphasized that. She's saying she didn't say he was he was attractive, but she was saying he was noticeable. And compared to the other TAs, they were quite engaged, but he was kind of not quite as open as a TA. He wasn't into the class, and he seemed bored a lot of the time. That's my words, not hers. And he was kind of in his own little world, she said. So the podcaster asked her what was noticeable about him because of the description I just read you. And she said that turn my page. She said that she said basically it was his eyes, and she said that, you know, when class got boring, it was a very intense class and there was a lot to take in, and when things started getting boring, her eyes just immediately went to BK. And so she didn't see him have any, you know, a lot of friends in class. She said he was a closed off TA, meaning he was just, others were open, but he was more of, you know, closed off. When I hear that, I interpret that as somebody who's kind of street smart. You know, if you're closed off, you're not just letting everybody in, you're waiting, you know, to find the right people. But it's open to interpretation, I guess. She said she had office time with him. So she did office time with him personally twice. She even would have continued, but she said it just wasn't helpful because it was more of like a student group. It wasn't like one-on-one with him, although she said she could have had one-on-one instruction from him. It was a group setting, and everybody just kind of sat there quietly working on their projects. So it just wasn't for her. So she didn't go back, but she said she never felt awkward or uncomfortable. He would just keep to himself on his laptop. And then the podcaster asked her, well, did you have like a sixth sense or like a spidey sense about him? And she said, did you notice something was off or anything about him? And Cassie says, no. They asked, was he just like an ordinary guy? And Cassie says she never got that sense. And she said there was one incident where a student sat down next to her because it was a big class and nobody had assigned seats. So one day she sat down next to someone new, and the guy sat next to her, and he said, and it was her first time meeting her. She said, doesn't this guy kind of give you weird vibes? And then he repeated it, and he said to her, it's in his eyes. And but she said to her personally, she got no weird vibes. And she said the days leading up to the event, everything was ordinary. And she asked her, was there a difference in grading before and after the incident? And she said she did notice it seemed like he was better grading after the incident, but it wasn't like super pronounced. She said people did label him as sexist, but again, something she never witnessed. And the podcaster also started asking about the survey, because I guess the survey was talked about in class, or people have said that the survey was talked about, and she says she never remembers reading or seeing any survey in that class. Now, the survey I heard about was from DeSales University, so I don't know if the podcaster had like the wrong information, or if there's something else I don't know about, or if people were saying that he brought up the DeSales University survey in this class. I don't know, but either way, this person who attended class regularly says she never saw or read a survey. The podcaster did go on to say that they reached out to WSU, and WSU did not want to confirm or deny anything in the podcast. They just wanted to make no statement. She said that after the crime, the school's response was kind of interesting and maybe different than what you would think. She said that she really didn't even realize how close the crime was to her until Thanksgiving break started approaching, and people were constantly calling and checking on her, telling her to get out of there. And that's when it started hitting home that this was only, a short ways away from her. But because of the school's attitude, she didn't quite see like how maybe close the situation was to her. And those were her words, not mine. The school's attitude she describes as, this has nothing to do with us. This is none of our business. They implied no curfew, and they encouraged people to continue with their classes. She said she remembered looking at, after the arrest, she remembers going back and looking at all of the emails that were sent to her by BK. And she said that was in the following weeks. And she looked at notifications. She could see edits, notifications. And she remembers looking at those like, wow. She remembers where she was when she found out BK was arrested. She was with one of her fellow criminology students in their dorm. And they're like, you got to look at this. And that's when they saw him on the news. And she just said so that's why kind of she was going back and looking at those edits and those notes. And she said then in the following weeks, they just all disappeared. So I think that goes back to, this was another, I was going to bring something up on X, but I'm not going to. We keep hearing that BK was let go for behavioral issues from WSU before he was arrested. And I think that's been debunked for me, because when I see he may have had some sort of disciplinary actions going on, but as far as his resignation letter, that wasn't, or his letter letting him go, that wasn't actually signed until the 30th. So the day after his arrest. And the thing is if you go back to the search warrant, part of it is to search his office. And if he had been let go before he left, why would his things still be in his office? Like, why would he have been let go before the 12th of December when he left, or the 15th of December when he left, and have everything in his office on the 30th where they put in that letter? That doesn't make sense. He would have had his office cleaned out by then, you would think. So I do think that although there may have been disciplinary action, I don't think he was let go. And also, he was planning on returning to his apartment and to school. And one thing that also I found out is that if he lost his TA position, he would lose his scholarship to the criminal justice program. So he had some tenure with this position. And if he lost the position, he wouldn't be able to return to school. So if he lost the position, why wouldn't they be moving all his stuff back? So you see what I'm saying? It just, to me, it doesn't, or maybe to you, you might feel differently, but for me, it was an after the fact thing that he got let go. Well, a lot of people are commenting. Hi, Angel D. And hey, Nina and David. Got a few new people in chat. Hold on. Didn't they say he was wearing a mask over his nose and mouth? What did his hair look like then? Or was it covered too? Confused. City girl. I think his hair was covered, but I don't know. This girl was one of his students. But maybe I misspoke and I can clarify. Let me know in the chat. DM says, DM can't say what color eyes he has, but has seen his eyebrows. I'm going to star that because I have Heather, who's in the chat, sent me a really interesting article. Again, I just showed you that People magazine cover. We were talking about early articles right after the arrest. Heather sent me one from News Nation. And okay, it kind of echoes, Howard Bloom's sources, but it's interesting and it changes the demeanor in which we've heard Dylan's accounts. So we'll come back to that. I put a star next to it. Oh yeah, this is a good point, Heather. They didn't even take his picture down until many days into January 2023. Jeez. And then we have a couple links to Nina and Jeff's channels. I don't know if Twizzle is here, but sorry, I'm sorry, but he had too much to lose after getting sober. I personally don't think he would risk it, just from my perspective as an addict and working with clients. And I think that the few times where you hear this girl get passionate is that one incident where she's like, that quote that I read you, how can we sit there and people say that he had no future? She's like, every kid in that class wanted to be where he was. He met his goal. He was there. He was, he was at the end of this journey that they were all starting. And she just, the work and the time he had spent on it was, they were, it was admirable. More than that, it was their goal. I don't know what prompted that comment to Jeff Angel D, but I'm not going to put it up. The shape of bushy eyebrows can probably be seen in low light, but the color of her eyes would be difficult. I would tend to agree. I think all eyes would kind of look black in low light, even blue eyes. I just got an update from Robert, you guys. That's funny. I haven't heard from him since the last time I posted. Robert, if you're watching, we're all saying hi. So you guys know, last we heard he had just gotten out of the hospital, and he says he just wanted to give an update that he's going for some tests this week, but it sounds like he's good. So that's such good news. And maybe in a few weeks, we'll see Robert back on YouTube again. Robert, such good news. We'll have to share it with the rest of YouTube. Jeff says, I gotta say, I don't see Ellie risk their careers over this crime any more than we'd imagine BK risking it. Well said. Obviously whoever's in there can stay. Yeah, and you get suppressed in the algorithm. Yep. This is what I want. One thing that is learned is the areas of mistakes people make in crimes. We're getting to that. Okay, that's another thing, a big problem this girl has with the case against BK right now. I should probably just get into the rest of this. Where I left off with you guys was I was talking about how WSU and their attitudes towards the crime. And their attitude, again, just to reiterate, is that their attitude was basically like, this isn't any of our business, continue with your classes, there's no shelter in order. And she felt so removed from the crime. It wasn't until Thanksgiving break and people calling her that she really felt that she might be in a dangerous position. And then so anyway, the podcaster reached out to WSU after they mentioned them to see if they had a statement, and they didn't want to say anything. Okay, so no, actually, where I left off was when BK's emails all got erased a couple of weeks after his arrest. So if he was fired, think about this: all of his notes, his edits, his emails, all of his notifications were still there for her to read until weeks afterwards. So if his account was deleted, why were they still there? I have been playing a lot of World of Warships to keep myself busy. That sounds stress-free, right? Go for a walk in nature, Robert. Chad, I haven't seen you in a while. I hope you're doing well. Why did she leave out the fact that his future was no longer ahead of him since he lost his teaching assistant position? He lost his role as a TA shortly before the murders were committed. And Chad, if you have some receipts for that, seriously bring them to the table. Like I said, I try not to take a bias. I try to I try to look at all sides of the coin, but I have not seen any evidence that he was fired until the 30th of December. There was some talk about disciplinary action, but I still didn't see receipts for it. It was one particular student who made the rounds in a bunch of podcasts, and this particular student said she just wants to say what she saw. She didn't see that. So totally not contradicting you, just want to know where you got that information so that we can have it too. Lifetime. Oh, I'm glad you guys are friendly fighting in the chat. Heather says, no, he actually did not. I wonder if you're talking about what I just talked about. And she said, so Heather's going to send me something, so I'll keep on the lookout for it. And, oh, okay. And then Jeff says, I'm interested to hear from those two professors named at the bottom of BK's research question project. Was that the research question project for DeSales? Or like this podcaster is saying that some people were saying they were talking about at WSU. Notice of termination on December 19th, received letter and trespass on December 30th. Have not seen that. I actually have a copy of the letter. Let me pull that up on X real quick. I'm not contradicting you guys, just want to know more. That's all. Just, here we go. Oh, please tell me I saved it. And of course I didn't. Look at my general bookmarks. Hold on. Oh shoot, I don't have it, but I'd be interested in that second date. Nina, that second date. And I know you have I know you have a good file on the case. So if you have the December 19th termination in writing somewhere, something that was signed or dated the 19th, because even if it was backdated and said the 19th in the December 30th letter, like I still wouldn't necessarily. Oh, you sent it to me? Hold on. Got an army of fact checkers here on YouTube. That's my dog snoring. Just oh, you just came from Dinky's panel? You thought he brought up a really good point, but I digress. So I'm just going to read to you from the search warrant what it says about his office. This is 2 paragraphs long. I'll be brief. So based on the above information, I am also seeking a search warrant for Kohberger's office at Washington State University campus. I have probable cause to believe evidence of crimes committed at the King Road residence will be found at Kohberger's office located on the WSU campus at the Wilson Short Hall, number 12, Pullman, Washington. It was common for individuals to keep documents, records, information, this type described above in their office of Kohberger's office in the other locations identified where evidence should be found. Based off of the WSU website, Kohberger's office is inside Wilson Short Hall. Oh, that was the other thing, is his photograph. I do have all the notes from this podcast written down, but his photograph stayed up on the website. It stayed up at the school. Like she just said, it didn't appear to be someone who was the subject of disciplinary action. Anyway, I'll keep going and not interject myself into the search warrant. Excuse me. All right, starting. So we're looking for documents, records, information of the type of evidence that could be found based off of the WSU website. Kohberger's office is inside the Wilson Short. That's my camera blocker. I'm so scared of getting hacked. I like put a piece of sticky note on my camera. The address of Wilson Short Hall is 475 Glen Terrell Hall, Pullman, Mass, blah, blah, blah. Wilson Short Hall is a 4-story brick building housing with multiple offices. Kohberger's office is number 12. Number 12 is a student's office shared by Kohberger and 2 fellow WSU students. And then they give their names, which I'm not going to give here. Kohberger has been confirmed to be one of the students who utilized the office. On December 29th, 2022, investigators visited the office of Kohberger, named the office, and Kohberger's name was on the outside. Based off of that information, I am also seeking a search warrant for Kohberger's office on the Washington State University campus. It is common for individuals to keep documents, records, and information. There are photos of people partying up on the ledge. There's a video where there's someone up on that ledge that you'd need a ladder to go or go out the window. They partied on the roof of Jack D's house, right? They did. And I've seen pictures of that. I've seen them. I saw this guy on the roof with a backpack on at the King Road home. And it was, I believe it was the day they went to Jack D's, and then they decided to take the walk over, and you see them when the house comes into frame, and then when they walk up, they get off the roof. It might not have been that body cam footage, but it was definitely a body cam footage. I saw people on the roof of the 1122 King Road home. And then Nina says, yes, that morning, back to the ladder. We all want to know Hunter wanted his money back, confronted Ian Finn with a golf club. I never heard that before, David. Take that down until I verify it. You should have investigated where the red Jeep that was parked, which was Ethan's, where it was, and should have been found more video of it. They might get more info of what happened that night. I think that about everything, like the runners, the guy in the dumpster, like everyone. And I know that everybody is like, well, the timeline is 4 a.m., but we don't know everything about the location. You would think you'd spread that net as wide as possible, especially when you have like $1 million in extra funding to handle the case. We've got some good links in here that talk about the tenor. Oh, and then Nina says, I have a video called Ladder explaining everything from Stacy Chapin. I'm going to star that and get back to it if we have time, because I think that, and no trace evidence in the car. So we think to ourselves, oh, well, he's a criminology major. That makes a lot of sense. That's how he did that. But Criminology 101 says have an alibi. And don't let your phone ping before, after, and during, well, not during, but nearly right after the crime scene. She's leaning towards he did it, but she is holding her judgment that he didn't do it too. Anything you'd like, and then the podcaster asked if there was anything she'd like to set the record straight for. And she said, before the crime, people make him out that he had nothing going for him. She said, that is straight up lies. He had a life. He was at his goals. He had so much of his future ahead of him. And to say that he didn't is straight out lies. It's not like he's a weird outsider dude that had nothing going for him. Her and all of her classmates couldn't even imagine being where he was. It's just an interesting thought. And remember, again, I don't know what we trust and what we don't trust from the Bloom article, but he appeared to get this information from either Martinez or one of the students. And he said, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, he didn't want to be a cop. He wanted to be a scientist. So I want to say a couple things. Since I really reviewed the entire podcast, which I've linked below, please go listen to it for yourself. Maybe you'll surmise something different. But I just want to say who participated in it. So it was Stephanie Ladaker, Courtney Armstrong, Gabriel Costello, and it is produced by KT Studios and iHeartRadio. So I encourage you to go check it out at Spotify. It's really good. Let me just get my my program up. I just lost the page, sorry. All right, so I'm going to go to this article about exculpatory information because we sort of got into it, and I'm really interested in this latter video. But I also have that, and we still wanted to talk a little bit about change of venue. It might be a good time to just tie that in. Rather than talking about change of venue, let me just bring up one thing after hearing that podcast. I mean, so, oops, that's the wrong thing. A girl who had a room there, who had Dylan's room previously, and had been one of the roommates. This is an interesting comment. SG and Christy flat out said they don't always state truths. That way they know when somebody has legit info. Well, I haven't heard that, Heather. What I've heard is this. I'm not pushing back on you. I'm just saying all I've heard, and I'm going to read it to you because I have it at my fingertips. I did not hear that they said they would say lies. This is what I heard them say. Let me take it down for a sec. They go, we maintain a few different narratives close to our chest that help us understand if a said source has knowledge that we have heard from direct sources. In a situation where information is sealed, closed, gagged, and redacted, these small details help us discern whether someone knows true details related to the case or simply spreading online speculation. I've heard that they omit. So, I mean, I never heard them say they hold the right to lie or something, but I heard that from that, I'm inferring that they are holding the right to omit information, but I could be mistaken. Somebody can go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong. It's an interesting question. I never heard anyone ask. Did HJ check Xana's pull through on Ethan? What about Kaylee and Maddie? Did they check them? I heard early on, and I've never heard it before, but the accounts were that BF found the girls upstairs. That came from Batanti, allegedly. It was printed in the Mirror. Thanks for stopping by.